Welcome back to this special edition of the show, coming to you from the Malaysian capital, Kuala Lumpur. We continue our discussion with the father of modern-day Malaysia, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. Sir, I was mentioning just before the break that we have a live chat room that's going as we are doing this interview, and I want to get a question from there. I can't see it exactly, but I've got the gist of it. It came from Wasin in Malaysia, who says, do you think that your march towards rapid economic expansion came at the price of the development of institutions such as the judiciary?
No, it doesn't. This is the propaganda that is started by the opposition just to demonize me. They just want to undermine my popularity, and they came up with this idea. But today the judiciary is still the same. You cannot criticize the judiciary, but sometimes the judiciary does say and make some very funny conclusions.
Now, you stepped down from the leadership in 2003, and at that time you fell out with the man you'd handpicked for the job, Dr. Abdullah Ahmed Badawi. And I wonder, where did most of your differences lie? What was the problem?
Well, initially, there was no fallout at all. I was ready to support him, but the moment I stepped down, I was barred from seeing the ministers. I was not allowed to speak to party members. Invitations to me to speak to various audience were asked to be withdrawn. I was isolated, and I was regarded almost like a pariah.
Why do you think that was? Especially after
I just can't understand. I know he wants to show that he is a different man, that he has his own ideas, and he's not going to be dominated by my ideas. He wants to get rid of, well, Mahathirism, if you like. He can do that, but you don't have to silence me, prevent me from talking, not allowing me to be reported in the press. That is the wrong thing that he did.
It was interesting, sir, while I've been here, one of the biggest issues that's come up talking to people in Malaysia, to Malaysians here, is that they're very concerned with the Internal Security Act. The ISA, it seems to be one of the universal debates here, that it's being abused. People who are not in any way really warranted to be arrested, under any sort of warrant to be arrested by this, are being held and detained and so on. Everyone's asking for a repeal of the ISA, or at least a major reform.
Yeah, we're watching America, actually. America is our model. They have arrested people, not even with the benefit of the law. We have a law which says that we can arrest people and detain them without trial. But in America, there is no such law. They arrested people, they kept them in Guantanamo Bay, they tortured these people, and they are not in a position to take the high moral ground.
But even if the criticism isn't from America, if it's people in Malaysia.
These people are just echoing the views of the so-called liberals from outside the country.
But I gather, as a young member of parliament yourself, you yourself stood up and said that the ISA is a defunct act. It shouldn't really be used now. It shouldn't be used against citizens as such.
I didn't use against citizens unless they stir up racial trouble. In fact, the first thing I did when I became Prime Minister in 1981, I released a lot of these ISA detainees who I considered were political detainees. Of course, those who are drug pushers and all that, I didn't touch them. But during the period when I was there, in 1987 in particular, there was a trend towards racial clashes, and both sides were getting heated up. At that stage, we had to take action, but not otherwise. Other than that, there were some people who had some terrorist inclination. They have been detained under ISA. The ISA is not a bad law, it's good law, but it has been abused.
But even with journalists, I mean, we've had journalists who've been detained under the ISA.
When? During my time?
We spoke to a journalist who's been held twice under the ISA and held under other laws as well.
Well, if they print things that would instigate people to confront and fight each other, yes, they would. We would have to do that.
I think they argued that they didn't print anything like that was the issue.
I don't think so. I would have to find out whether they did. But recently, a journalist was arrested for 3 days under ISA and then released. Obviously, they made they didn't consider the case very carefully.
So I get a couple of questions in here from our viewers. We have from Washington, D.C., Anwar is on the line. Anwar, your question, please.
Hi, Dr. Mahathir. My question
Go ahead,
to you
please.
is, Dr. Mahathir, hey, Riz, thanks for having me on. My question is the reference to America and Guantanamo Bay. President-elect Obama has made a strong statement that he would close down Guantanamo Bay and that it's not, it doesn't reflect the legal traditions of the United States. It doesn't seem to make sense that the abuse of power in the U.S., which was used to detain people viewed as terrorists, is being equated with a law in Malaysia, which is being used right now to detain people who are aligned with the opposition. I was interested in his comments on that.
Okay. All right.
Well, you know, Mr. Bush introduced torture as part of a government way of getting information, and that has become legal because Congress has approved it. But there has been no such thing in Malaysia, no torture here. Of course, some policemen might do things which they are not allowed to do, but that is a different thing. But we have this detention law, and we detain under the law. But when Bush started detaining people, there was no provision in the law, neither in Europe, I mean in England. So there is a difference there. And I'm glad that if Obama wants to get rid of this law, he should. But of course, he should be taken off the statute books, this thing, provision for torture of prisoners.
We have Daniel on the line from Malaysia. Daniel, your question, please.
Yes, good evening to Dr. Mahathir. Malaysia is a very blessed country. It has a whole lot of natural resources and everything, but it continues to remain an underdog in the services economy. It continues to underperform with most of its peers in the region. And what are we doing wrong here? This is basically my question. And what is Dr. Mahathir's comments on this whole issue?
Okay. Thank you, Daniel.
For a long time, we were doing far better than most of the other countries in this region, except for tiny Singapore. So you cannot say that we are doing worse than other countries. But at the moment, yes, I would say that the economy is not performing as well as it used to. But that is due to mismanagement. So that you cannot blame the policies of the country and the basic strategies that were laid down by previous prime ministers.
Okay, another question from Malaysia. ENDETH's on the line. Go ahead.
Deputy President Dr. Chua Sai-lei of the Malaysian Chinese Association, second largest component party of the ruling coalition in Malaysia, recently made a remark that the Ketuanan Melayu concept or the Malay supremacy concept is no longer relevant in today's society. Do you agree with his stance? And what do you think of the relevancy of this concept in today's Malaysian society in view of the political tsunami that caused the country's ruling Barisan Nasional? Thank you.
Okay.
Well, we can take Ketuanan Melayu in which way you like, but as far as I'm concerned, there is no such thing. In fact, the Malays are the underdog in this country. They are the poorer people. I keep on telling them that if you work as a driver or a shoe polisher, you cannot very well call yourself Tuan. The man who pays you to polish his shoes, he's the Tuan. So for the Malays to become Tuan, he has to succeed in life, he has to be very rich, and he will have to own Rolls Royces and all that. And then his driver will call him Tuan. I used to have a Chinese driver before, and he calls me Tuan. So this Ketuanan thing is being blown out of all proportion.
Sir, with just about 30 seconds to go, you were a heavy critic of George W. Bush, President Bush. What do you expect from President Barack Obama, President-elect Barack Obama?
Well, he says change. I would like to see him change. And there is a lot of change that is needed in the United States. The first thing, of course, is to understand the world. The world is not the U.S. No. Americans tend to think that the U.S. is the world, but there is a bigger world outside.
We shall certainly see. Dr. Mahathir, thank you very much for being with us, and thank you for your candor.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being with us too, from all of the team here in Malaysia and in Washington, D.C. Glad you could join us for this special week. We'll see you next time.